Hari Om, everybody. It's 10 o'clock. We'll get started.
Hari Om.
Om. Om. गणानान्त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतान् शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामविद्यवत् ॐ गणेशाय नमः ॐ सरस्वत्यै नमः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये वागीशाद्य सुमनसः सर्वार्थानामुपक्रमे यं नत्वा कृतकृत्या स्युः तं नमामि गजाननम् वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय कोटिसूर्यसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि सद्गुरुं तं नमामि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्य केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवत् व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरं यस्य सन्निधि मात्रेण सर्वे शिष्याश्च सेवकाः कर्मक्षेत्रे प्रवर्तन्ते चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहम् चिन्मयं तं नमाम्यहम् Hari Om, everybody. Welcome back to our weekly Vedanta classes on Viveka Choodamani. We will get started with our Mangala Charana Shloka. Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. Happy Dasara to all of you. We had a great celebration for the last 10 evenings with our Devi group every night, reveled in the Devi Stuti. The entire group did a phenomenal job. In the true Yagna spirit, they all joined together, thoroughly enjoyed it. So last week, we started our inquiry into the Mahavakya, Tattvam Asi. We know from our introduction to the topic of Mahavakya Vichara, there are many statements in the Vedas or the Upanishads that indicate the unity, the essential oneness of the individual and the infinite truth. Out of many such Mahavakyas, we've also seen that there are 4 popular Mahavakyas, one from each Veda, and we also saw the story that connected each one of them as a roadmap for the sadhakas. That brings us to the Upadesha Vakya of Tat Tvam Asi, found in the Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter of Chandogya Upanishad. This Upadesha Vakya was given as a part of the dialogue between Uddalaka Muni and his disciple son, Shvetaketu. So this essential oneness, or that Jiva Brahma Aikya, is realized through the inquiry into this statement or great declaration from the Upanishad. In the last class, we saw a very simple example. If I take the individual me as a 100-watt bulb, and Brahman being very big, the big, as a 1,000,000-watt bulb, and when we remove all the conditioning, the output, etc., how the electricity flowing through them is the common factor. Same way, bereft of all the conditionings, the God principle between us is the same. Or mathematically also we said, if I were to say Jiva minus the microcosmic conditioning is the Satchidananda principle. Or we can say Ishvara minus macrocosm conditioning is the same Sat Chit Ananda principle. That Satchidananda principle is the common factor. So what are we talking about here in summary is that underlying consciousness principle is the same between Atman and Brahman. I hope it is very clear to all of you. A lot of people hearing this statement superficially, they feel this is blasphemy. How can I, the individual, who we know is finite, with limited knowledge, alpagna, with limited strength, alpashaktiman, a speck in the big scheme of the universe. Like we say, the dot on the map, alpavyapi, deluded by Maya, Maya Mohita, or Maya Dasa. How can this entity be equated to the Lord, who is infinite, all-pervading, sarvavyapi, sarvagna, all-knowing, controller of Maya, yielder of Maya, Maya Adhipati? How can those two be equal? Let us recap a few selected verses. We started this inquiry in the last class, starting with verse number 241. Tvam padabhyam abhidhiyamanayoh. Tattvam padabhyam abhidhiyamanayoh. Brahmatmano shodhitayor yaditham. Brahmatmano shodhitayor yaditham. Shrutyastayos tattvamasiti samyak yekatvameva pratipadyate muhu. One more time. Tattvam padabhyam abhidhiyamanayoh. Brahmatmano shodhitayor yaditham. Shrutyastayos tattvamasiti samyak ekatvameva pratipadyate muhu. Here, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji he is bringing in this Shruti Vakya. From the Chandogya Upanishad, we already saw that. Tattvam Asi. Tat is Tatpada. When we say in Guru Stotram, as I mentioned last week, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In the Guru Stotram, we say that. That Tatpada, simply meaning that. And then there is Twampada. In this case, it is you and I. Meaning, since this is a Upadesha Vakya, from the Guru to the Shishya, so it is you, meaning the student, you and I. Then there is Asipada. That is that oneness. How we say in mathematically, when we say equal to, like that. That oneness. Here Shankaracharya ji is saying, this Shruti Vakya, the Tattvam Asi, is establishing that oneness. Ekatvameva pratipadyate muhu. then that Aikya, the oneness, or the Asipada, he says should be arrived by stripping the relative conditioning. The oneness is arrived by what we call as lakshyartha. Lakshyartha means the indicative meaning or implied meaning. I will explain that. But first, let us chant the next verse also, and I'll explain it on the other side. ऐक्यं तयोर्लक्षितयोर्नवाच्ययोः ऐक्यं तयोर्लक्षितयोर्नवाच्ययोः निगद्यते अन्योन्यविरुद्धधर्मिणोः निगद्यते अन्योन्यविरुद्धधर्मिणोः खद्योतबान्वोरिवराजभृत्ययोः खद्योतबान्वोरिवराजभृत्ययोः कूपाम्बुराश्योः परमाणुमेर्वोः कूपाम्बुराश्योः परमाणुमेर्वोः. One more time together. ऐक्यं तयोर्लक्षितयोर्नवाच्ययोः निगद्यते अन्योन्यविरुद्धधर्मिणोः खद्योतबान्वोरिवराजभृत्ययोः कूपाम्बुराश्योः परमाणुमेर्वोः. See, Vedantic texts talk of two things. One is called the Vachyartha. Pay very close attention to this. Meaning, there is a direct meaning to the word or the sentence. Vachyartha. The term used to denote the implied meaning is called lakshyartha. So when we use the expression, let us say, as an example, we say he is a lion. This does not literally mean, all of us know that he is not a lion, literally. He is brave like a lion. He is fearless like a lion. At the outset, when we are analyzing the Tattvamasi Vakya, this kind of distinction between the individual and Brahman seems too obvious. Jiva is born, it gets modified, one day it perishes, it dies. There is a birthday, there is an end day. God is unborn. Man grows and decays, and God is changeless. Man is limited entity, God is unlimited, infinite. So to tell us that it is obvious differences, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji gave us 4 examples in this verse. Khadyota Banvo Rivaraja Bhrutyayoho, the glowworm and the sun. In the context of effulgence, Ishvara is like the sun with unlimited knowledge. everything unlimited. Raja Bhrutya Yoho. The king and the servant, second example. In this example, what does it illustrate? Ishvara is the controller, Jiva is the controlled. Niyama Niyamika Sambandha. And in the third example, we saw the well and the ocean. Upa Amburashi. Limited versus unlimited. Whether you take space, bliss, everything is unlimited with Bhagavan. And finally, Paramanu and Meru. When we say I am the speck in the big scheme of things, and he is the big Brahman, like Mount Meru, versus an atom, Anu versus Meru. All these four examples illustrate the obvious thing. So what Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji is saying here is, we also know, Bhaiya, that it is obvious these differences are there here in the equation. If we take the literal meaning, Vachyartha, it is quite obvious that we cannot arrive at the Asipada, that Atman is Brahman, if we take Vachyartha. But when we take the Lakshyartha, the implied meaning, the indicative meaning, we arrive at that oneness. So Vedantic texts, they talk about how to derive this implied meaning logically, okay? There are three methods that they teach the Vedantic text outlines. One is Jahati Lakshana, Ajahati Lakshana, Bhagatyaga Lakshana. Jahal, Ajahal Lakshana also you can say. I will try to explain these in a very simplistic way. A common example that is given is that when we say, hey, that ashram is on Ganga. Sentence says, ashram is on Ganga. If you take the literal meaning, it is obvious. Vachyartha, it doesn't make sense. How can there be ashram on that rapidly flowing Ganga? Those who have seen Ganga river, you can't even hold the chain and stand there. So, it is obvious. So, you have to take the Lakshyartha, which means ashram is on the banks of the Ganga river. That obvious. Ganga Tire Goshaya. Then there is Ajahal Lakshana. Let me give an example for that. You know, in India, how our mothers used to make, when they make these fryams, right, or papad, we call them sandige in Kannada. They make it, mom makes it and then keeps it in the hot sun on the roof outside so that it dries up naturally. Mother tells the child, Beta, make sure the crow doesn't come. So the child should know by implication, when mom says crow, it means not just crow, it could be any other bird, it could be dogs, cats, or any other creature that can come. By implication, child obviously knows that. Sometimes, when the cricket series is happening, right, we say Australia is playing India in this one-day series. Meaning, The continent Australia is not playing, meaning Australian cricket team is playing the Indian cricket team. So we add that. We don't have to say, or if somebody were to say, bring water, we assume it is water within a tumbler. Or when we say, you offer him coffee, I had 2 cups. He says, he knows obviously that it is 2 cups of coffee. He couldn't have had 2 cups like that. I hope you got the idea. Now, that is obvious. Now, Vedantic text explains how to apply this implied method using an example called Sonaha Dhavati. Meaning, red, Sona means red is running. If you apply Vachyartha, it doesn't make sense. Literally means, how can redness run? So we need to add a word by implication. Just the examples I gave you previously. That implied meaning is that red horse is running. So let us get back to our Mahavakya. I hope you got that, you caught that. To arrive at this Asipada, meaning to arrive at Tattvam Asi, both Jahati and Ajahati, both these lakshanas are inadmissible. They don't apply. You cannot apply for arriving at Atman equals Brahman. So what do I do? Before we go any further, if you remember how we referenced the Upadesha Sara Shloka last week, because this entire group, they worked with me on that text. Isha Jivayor Veshadhi Bida Satsvabhavato Vastu Kevalam. So this Isha Jivayoho Veshadi Bida, that when there is a difference in what? In the costume, Veshadhi. Jiva has this BMI complex in the Upadhis. And when we look at the Jiva from a microcosmic conditioning, I am Alpagna, I am Alpashaktiman, I am Parichinna, limited, whereas the Lord is Sarvashaktiman, He is omniscient, all-pervading, He is Sarvagna. Yes, from that perspective, you are correct to think like that. From that drushti, you are correct. The consciousness principle is the same. That's what we are saying. That Jiva Brahma Aikya that Upanishads are talking about, when we say that Tattvam Asi, that common factor between Vyashti and Samashti, the part and the whole, that common factor between the conditioning is the same. If we drop the conditioning from the point of Sat, Sat Swabhavataha, there is one reality. Vastu Kevalam. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi explained this very simply. When we look at the ocean and the wave, very common example given in Vedanta to explain this. Yes, there is a difference. Ocean is so vast, wave is this small entity having ups and downs, but from a water standpoint, there is oneness. Both are same. So the key here for our perspective, are we looking at the tattva? Or are we looking at names and forms, nama rupa? Yes, there is a difference in the individual and the total, but in true nature, there is no difference. That is Tattvamasi. If we say like that, it seems simple to understand, we might say. Remember, both Vachyartha and in the implied meanings Lakshartha, the Jahati, Ajahati Lakshana was inadmissible to arrive at this meaning. So Vedantic texts, what they talk about, a third methodology to apply here, called Bhagatyaga Lakshana. Bhagatyaga Lakshana. So in this methodology, what do? We arrive at this implied meaning, pay very close attention, implied meaning by giving up a portion of the Vachyartha or the literal meaning, which is contradictory to the true intent of the word, and retaining the non-contradictory portions. That is Bhagatyaga. A very common example that is given in the Vedantic text to illustrate this Bhagatyaga Lakshana is Saha Ayam Devadattaha. Simply said, Soyam Devadatta. It doesn't make any sense to you, but I will narrate a little bit story behind it. Meaning that Devadatta. See, you will see this type of names in the Vedantic texts. Devadatta, Somadatta, Brahmadatta, like that, as common names in the Vedantic text. For our understanding, I'm only saying this for our understanding. Imagine this Devadatta living in New Jersey. This Devadatta fellow is living in New Jersey. He is a very tall, handsome fellow with a pointy nose, thick eyebrows, wide sideburns, always dressed up in a suit and a tie. Again, one more time. This guy Devadatta, he lives in New Jersey. He's a tall, handsome fellow with a pointy nose, very thick eyebrows as though they're joined together, very wide sideburns, distinguishing sideburns, always dressed up in a suit and tie. He goes by Dave because he works in Wall Street. Devadatta. This friend told me about this description of Devadatta from New Jersey. And this Devadatta is this description from New Jersey, right? So the friend who told him about this description, they happened to be at Parashakti temple during this Navaratri puja in Michigan. They're standing in line because it's Navaratri Puja, big line is there. They see this person in front of them in the line, waiting for Archana to be done with all the puja samagri in hand, waiting in line at the temple. They see this person dressed up in a traditional attire. He is wearing a dhoti, nice silk shirt. He has a chandan smeared on his forehead with a small bottu of kumkum, standing in line. This friend said, Soyam Devadatta. This is that Devadatta. As soon as my friend said that, it dawned on me that the features of that pointy nose, that tall guy, prominent sideburns, the thick eyebrows, all that, I recognize that this is the same Devadatta from New Jersey who works on Wall Street. Who always wore a suit and tie. So the word Saha, in that Saha Aham Devadatta, that same Devadatta, I am refers to that New Jersey Devadatta, now seen in Michigan. So how did I arrive at this conclusion? By dropping the contradictory aspect, by dropping all his attributes, wearing a dhoti, wearing a chandan, or wearing a suit, all that, the western suit, the tie, the traditional dhoti, the chandan on his forehead, all that I arrived at Soyam Devadatta. That is the meaning of Soyam Devadatta, meaning with that story in mind. We have to understand the following verses of Viveka Choodamani. That will help in understanding of the Mahavakya. Okay? We will chant number 247. Tatastutau lakshanaya sulakshyau. Tatastutau lakshanaya sulakshyau. Tayorakandaikarasattvasiddhaye. Tayorakandaikarasattvasiddhaye. Nalam jahatya न तथा अजहत्या. नालम जहत्या न तथा अजहत्या किंतु भयार्तात्मिकैव भाव्यम्. One more time. ततस्तुतौ लक्षणया सुलक्ष्यौ. तयोरकण्डैक रसत्वसिद्धये. नालम जहत्या न तथा अजहत्या किंतु भयार्तात्मिकैव भाव्यम्. See, these two terms, Ishvara and Jiva, we need to analyze this carefully through the implied meaning. That's what Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji is saying, through this Lakshyartha, so that the absolute identity of that Atman is Brahman may be established. What he is saying? Nalam jahatya na tata ajahatya. So neither this total rejection, jahati lakshana, complete retention, ajahati lakshana, they both cannot be used. So what do I do? So I go to 248th verse. Sadevo devadattoyamiti hachaikata. Sadevadattoyamiti hachaikata. Viruddha dharma shamapasya katyate. Viruddha dharma shamapasya katyate. Sadeva datto ayamiti hachaikata. Viruddha dharma shamapasya katyate. Yata tatha tattvamasiti vakye. Yata tata tattvamasiti vakye. Viruddha dharmanubhayatra hitva. Viruddha dharmanubhayatra hitva. One more time together. Sadeva dattoyamiti hachaikata. Viruddha dharmam shamapasya katyate. Yata tatha tattvamasiti vakye. Viruddha dharmanubhayatra hitva. Actually, we should chant 249 also. They are together. Samlakshya chinmatrataya sadatmano. Samlakshya chinmatrataya sadatmano. Akhanda bhavaha परिचीयते बुधैः अखंड भावः परिचीयते बुधैः संलक्ष्य चिन्मात्रतया सदात्मनोः अखंड भावः परिचीयते बुधैः एवं महावाक्यशतेन कथ्यते एवं महावाक्यशतेन कथ्यते ब्रह्मात्मनोरैक्यमखण्डभावः ब्रह्मात्मनोरैक्यमखण्डभावः. So in this, just as a sentence, Soyam Devadatta came. If you just read this verse without knowing that background, what is this Soyam Devadatta? Now you know who is this Devadatta. That is that Devadatta, that example in the Vedantic text that is used for this Bhagatyaga lakshana. Now we all know what that means. That identity is spoken of. How did we arrive at that Devadatta? By eliminating the contradictory portions. Viruddha dharmam shamapasya katyate. So in this sentence also, the tattvamasi vakya, what should the wise man do? He must give up this contradictory portions or the contradictory elements on both sides of the equation and recognize that identity of Ishvara and Jiva. I hope you caught that. It is very subtle. Noticing carefully the essence of both, which is that consciousness principle, that knowledge absolute. So this is what the hundreds of scriptural texts are talking about, this oneness. This is Jiva Brahma Aikya. the oneness of Atman and Brahman, identity of Brahman and Jiva. When do we realize this? This is realized only when we shift our attention from the conditioning, upadhi, to the unconditioned consciousness. When we shift our attention at the macro level from the pluralistic world of names and forms, and at the individual level, when the anatma of panchakoshas, the gross, subtle, and causal bodies are all negated, what remains is that common factor of that infinite consciousness. And this, there is no distinction inside, there is no distinction outside. One devotee asked Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, if the Lord is the Lord with form and attributes, or is he without form and attributes? He said, how Mahatmas answer these type of basic questions, on what do you think? He said simply, it depends on what you think you are. If you think you are with form, he said, he is with form. If you think you are formless, he is formless, and then you are one, he is one with you. So when I look at the world outside, through the prism of my body, I become conscious of all the objects. When I transcend my body identity, the world of objects are eliminated. When I transcend my mind, I eliminate my world of emotions. That means vagaries of the mind. You can't eliminate the mind. When I go beyond my intellect, I eliminate my thought agitations and disturbances. So what remains in that meditation, in that state of stillness, is my consciousness alone. With that consciousness, when I look at the world of no objects, no emotions, no thoughts, because I am viewing the world with the judgment until now of my own body, mind, and intellect. When these upadhis or conditionings are removed at the time of my meditation, I see nothing but my own consciousness within and without and everywhere. That is why we say the divinity in me is the divinity everywhere. That Sarvatma Bhava that the Upanishads are talking about, this is Tattvamasi culminating into Aham Brahmasmi. Hope you caught that. We'll stop here for this week. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. May all be happy. May all be healthy. May all see auspiciousness. May none suffer. Om peace, peace, peace. With that, if your schedule permits, please stay back for our interactive session. We'll have a good discussion on that.